So it's 1 o'clock. Do you think we want to give one more extra minute since there was actually a lot of people that enrolled just to see? All right. Let me go ahead and start off the meeting. So I want to thank everybody who came and logged in for this meeting and taking time out of your day. So I just wanted to kind of host this meeting to kind of give a wrap up of what we did in 2024, what we plan to do in 2025. But again, plan is there's no ETA that we can actually provide because everything we do is based off of our volunteer time. So obviously, if there's something that we can't do, but it's really important, anybody can just jump in and work on it. It's pretty much free for anyone to contribute to. And then we'll kind of open at the very end of this meetup, like a feedback section. So if you had questions or if you want to answer some of the questions we provide, you can provide at the end. So let's go ahead. So I'm going to, I guess, introduce myself first. I don't know if any of the other hosts or PMC members want to introduce after. They don't have to. They can introduce, obviously, whenever they want to contribute into the topic. So my name's Brian Ellis. I'm basically the PMC chair of the Apache Cordova project. I pretty much work on every part of the repositories that we have, tooling, platforms, sometimes plugins, obviously down to documentation and coding. And then I also try to get the releases going, but any PMC member can actually start the release process and get the votes going. So that's who I am. Does anyone else? Nicholas, do you want to introduce?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Niklas. I've been in the PMC project for some time now. I'm helping here and there, so I don't work for projects or Cordova apps all the time anymore. So it's my free time. I'm contributing my free time, helping Brian here and there, and help to organize this meeting. And I'm sometimes writing up blog summaries and stuff like this. So helping with the releases. Anyone else, or back to Brian?
Hi, I'm Daryl. I've been mostly working on the Cordova iOS 8 next major over the past year, hoping to get that out sometime in the next few months. And I think we'll be talking a little bit more about that in this summary later on.
Is there anybody else, or should I continue? All right, so I'll go ahead and move on. So we're going to first start off, like I said, with the recap of what we've released, what we've done in 2024, maybe some other topic points that we think is kind of important. So first, in the year, last year, we basically released the Electron Framework major upgrade. It went from the Electron Framework, we upgraded version 14 to 29, so it was a really huge upgrade. One thing I wanted to point out with Electron is that they wanted the default sandbox, which I think is very important and something we should support in the future. But as of right now, we had to turn it off because the plugin ecosystem that we are leveraging, it needs to have the ability to preload the scripts. So obviously this is what I would like to investigate in. If anyone else has like obviously experience with Electron and is willing to help contribute or even try to drive a little bit of the development, that'd be great. So the next release that we did was Cordova iOS 7.1. Obviously, there's probably some bug fixes in there, but the main focus of that release was to support Apple's new privacy manifest requirements. That was basically the main focus. I can't think of anything else that was in that release. Then came our Android 13 release. This one, again, its main purpose, every time we have a major release for Android, it's always to upgrade the SDK to support the next release to make sure that we meet the requirements of the Google Play Store requirements. This was SDK 34. There was some breaking changes. For example, it upgraded Gradle 8.7, which I believe required the Java 17 version to be used. Then we had a few plugins that were released. These plugins, again, were upgraded for the privacy manifest. If you happen to develop plugins and you need to actually figure out how to support the privacy manifest in your own plugins, I would recommend looking at one of these plugins because it shows how we are like basically loading the privacy manifest in a bundle. It's pretty simple. So this is great resources, in my opinion, if you need help with that. Also, in the device plugin, it's right now the only plugin that we technically fully support with the Electron platform. So if you are someone who is looking to use Electron to support desktop platforms, and you need to write your own plugin, this would probably be the great place to start because it shows you how to create and load npm packages and whatnot. I've been trying to write a like doc explaining how to build such a plugin, but I keep getting sidetracked with like work and other major releases that needs to be done. Then we had a patch release for Cordova iOS. There was nothing too major in this one. So this is where the biggest release comes in for iOS. It's our first beta. We don't usually release betas. This probably like in the entire time I was working for Cordova, this is probably the first beta I've ever seen and actually do a vote on. Because it was a huge upgrade, we really wanted to get like community feedback. Obviously, if people aren't aware of the upgrade, we're kind of hoping that you can check it out, test it if you're a plugin developer or an app developer, and kind of give us some feedback to know if there's any issues. Because we've introduced some like API changes, like that is using newer features, we had to raise the minimum support to iOS 13. Some other big parts for this version is we're supporting Swift Package Manager, so you should be able to load the iOS core library with SPM instead of CocoaPods if you're like a native first development. But obviously for the CLI, where we're kind of like focused more on, you can use it just by using like when you add the platform, use the @beta tag at the end, so you can check it out. We are trying to keep as much as possible backwards compatible, and later on, I'll kind of talk a little bit about documentation that we're trying to improve on the platform in a later section, and then kind of show you that we're trying to also provide information to help plugin developers to migrate towards this version. I don't know if there's anything more specific Daryl wants to add on this, or
No, just echoing that we put out the beta with the hope of getting feedback from people with their apps, particularly from plugin developers. We made a lot of changes, tried to clean up a lot of old deprecated APIs, restructure things to make more sense and be more maintainable. We've tried really hard to do that without breaking anything. We did deprecate a lot of stuff, so you'll get a bunch of warnings, but we tried not to actually break anything. But it's impossible for us to test every single plugin that's out there. So getting feedback on things that we might have accidentally broken or things that could still be improved is really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. So next, we had a few more plugins and tooling releases. Again, the majority of these releases are focused on the remaining, maybe privacy manifest. It's also resolving issues that were between platforms and passing in URLs. So like if you create like a file on the server, how to get that up to the front end, like not the server, but the native side, and bring it to the front end, how to load it in, and then pass things around from the camera. There was like iOS had one way of creating these URLs, Android had a different way. There was a lot of differences. So we were trying to make it a little more consistent, trying to fix some of those issues in the URL creations and sharing. And additionally, the other thing that one of the big things with the camera plugin, why it was a major release, is that we ended up finding a way of basically dropping the requirement for any permissions. You don't actually need any permissions, but there is a particular use case. Maybe Norman can talk on this, but if I remember correctly, you needed a specific, like an older device, and maybe accessing external storage. You would still need to load a particular permission. But in most cases, you can get by with just using the scope. So, yeah, if Norman wants to add anything on that.
Yeah, to clarify, it's any device before the scoped access framework. So we're talking API 28 and audio. You don't need permissions unless if you want to use some shared directory. So like if you wanted to publish an image to the photo album, for example, it still needs write permission. So we removed it by default because most applications probably don't need it. And we are feeling it's better to opt in to permissions that you need rather than it providing it by default and then trying to figure out how to remove it. So.
Yep. And yeah, so like you said, the opt-in stuff, we updated the documentation of the plugin to explain this use case and when to add it in, if I remember correctly. So if you do end up needing to opt in, just check out the plugins README. And also, I believe we usually when we do these releases, we provide information as such in the release note, the blog, so that you can be aware of how to fix your app if you happen to need those permissions. So next, I wanted to kind of cover some of the other major points of 2024. So actually, we had a community survey, but it was in 2023. But the official release of the results, when we like ended it and everything, was posted in 2024. There was like a lot of interesting information. Obviously, if you want to like look into depth what it looks like, you can actually go to our blog and look for the community survey. Nicholas was the one who ran this and set everything up, so that was great. And yeah, so this is something really useful. We definitely like to see how a lot of people are still using Cordova. And Yeah, sorry, my screen went black there for a second. And obviously, what we're very curious on is like how many people have like contributed to Apache Cordova, how many people are like actually willing and like would like to, but obviously some people might not understand how to start. Obviously, if this is something like if you're interested in contributing and you had such similar feeling that you don't know what to do or how to start, maybe like we would like to try to make it simple and easier. And if you want to explain that at the end, or even shoot like an email to us through our developer mailing list, or even on GitHub discussions, we're kind of open to like get a discussion going, try to figure out how to simplify things. I don't know if Nick wanted to add anything else to this section.
No, not really much to add. So most of the stuff is in the blog post summarized. And I started a survey because I had some feelings, some expectations about the community and the usage of Cordova. And the survey basically confirmed it. So the pain points we feel are the same pain points the users feel. And yeah, but people are overall still happy with Cordova and can do their work as we expected, and the platforms that are used matched our expectations. So this is what we got out of the survey. And yeah, as Brian mentioned, the contributing part is the most interesting point, and we will talk about this later in this meeting today.
Thank you. So the next major point is the Cordova iOS framework docs. So as part of the Cordova iOS 8 development work, we are trying to actually enhance our framework docs to help plugin developers to understand the APIs that they can use, how they access certain information. Here, I'll load it up so you can see what it looks like. This is actually available right now, but we don't have it linked anywhere specifically. It's loaded on the Cordova iOS repositories like GitHub pages. But when we officially release Cordova iOS 8, I'm thinking we're going to try and find a place to put this, like a link to it from our website, so it makes it a lot more visible. But I'm not entirely sure if we're going to move any of this over because of how it's built right now. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is that we will have the upgrade guide. So this will explain some of the breaking changes, things how to like here's like old code, what you can do as new code to solve the problem. So we're trying to give you a little bit of like help with the more of the things that are generally used in plugins.
I'll just add that a lot of this documentation is generated from comments within the Cordova lib platform code for iOS. So the documentation about the classes and stuff here is mostly aimed at people who would be looking to use Cordova as a library inside an existing app. But it's also, it turns out, really helpful to document how things work internally for ourselves, and then document which APIs are available to plugin developers that are interacting with things like the Cordova view controller or the Cordova bridge. And then definitely putting together this page about what you need to do to upgrade your plugins to Cordova iOS 8, a list of all the things that have been deprecated, what to switch to, how to work around to keep things working. And again, we've tried really hard to provide solutions for everything that changed in a way that's backwards compatible, so you don't have to break compatibility with existing versions.
Thank you. So I think, so there's one other thing I didn't actually make a bullet point on this, and I wanted to bring it up because of Cordova iOS 8 is supporting Swift Package Manager. There's like a blog post, I think, on CocoaPod's website mentioning how they're looking into the future of probably being like maintenance mode or something, but like there's no ETA if they're ever going to do this. But it's kind of bringing us to this point where we should start preparing to support Swift Package Manager to prevent this issue further down the road. So that's one of the reasons why we're beginning to introduce Swift Package Manager for plugins and for loading the framework. So yeah, that was the other. And the other thing we started doing at the end of last year was to start preparing for the Cordova Android 14 major release. Basically, I created like a branch, a merge request, and I just kind of dumped everything in there to kind of start testing, building, just to see how everything is working, trying to find if there's any upgrade issues with the SDK. Obviously, there is probably one recent thing that was brought up in Slack about edge to edge, something that we would like to test a little further and figure out if that's going to be an issue for this release, or if it is, how to go about and solve some of these points to make sure it's not, again, breaking to a point where you have to do a lot of rework. We want to try and keep as much as possible backwards compatible. Yep. So now we are in 2025. So that was basically everything from 2024. So in 2025 for releases, we're hoping to get the Android 14 out. Again, like I said, it's for the SDK 35. I know that there's going to be a new version eventually, but we are always trying to aim. Like I said, we can't really give ETAs on releases, but we do aim to get everything out all the time before the deadlines of these, like Android or Apple. So like in this case, the Google Play Store is the thing we usually try to target before, because it's when people need to start supporting. So that's one. Next is obviously Cordova iOS 8. Media capture. This is just one plugin that I know we're trying to work on because again, part of the stuff that we were working on with other plugins was to try to remove the read permissions. These permissions Google basically created for, like, I guess, granular permissions, but then eventually they decided to kind of make it, I guess, a little more restrictive, where you probably have to make requests for. Maybe Norman can talk on this, but the whole point is that we need to get that out of the media capture plugin, or else it could cause issues on releases, and we rather have people again opt in for the permissions for the use cases. Okay, I'll keep going. Okay. And lastly, there is most likely going to be a new CLI and Cordova lib, which is one of the internal tools of CLI. A major release for that. If anybody has been monitoring CLI and wondering why there's not a lot of releases, it's not that it's not being looked at. It's just that CLI is pretty much stable. In the past, when we used to have major releases or any release technically for Android and iOS, there would have been a CLI release, and that was because lib used to have a platform pinning, and that basically made us like everything coupled to a point. So like a few years ago, we basically tried to decouple as much of this as possible, so that when we make these major releases to platforms, you don't have to wait for a CLI. You can immediately start using the latest platform releases with the existing version of CLI. So yeah, if you don't see so much activity in CLI, it's just because it's probably stable and there's not much needed there. The only thing we're probably going to do in this release is just kind of start upgrading the node version requirements, maybe some cleanup, removing some dependencies that are kind of obsolete. And we're trying to use as much node internals versus using dependencies so that it'd be a lot more stable, so we don't have to worry about if there's a dependency issue in the future. So that's basically all I had. But obviously there's going to be probably a lot more like wants that we want to do. And if we find time, it'll appear. Like Electron, that's something else I wanted to focus on, but we'll see. So another thing that was kind of brought up is like bringing up like awareness of how we do releases. It was kind of suggested that maybe we could do a community release live stream at some point. I'm not sure if anybody here is interested to kind of see how we prepare a release, how we how we submit the release, what's like the process of getting a release out, that type of stuff. But if people are interested, we might be able to set up a live stream sometime in the future, and we'll just like kind of run it down. It probably wouldn't be an hour long or anything, but maybe that will help giving people like an insight of what we do behind the scenes.
Yeah, I might just add to the live stream stuff that many people I talk to feel intimidated by the whole process thing about Apache, that we have votes and certain rules that we need to follow for releases. But in the end, it's pretty simple, and we just have some checklists and some commands and some tools, and we're working on making it even easier today. So showing this to the public, to the community, might help us find more people jumping in and helping with doing releases. So I really like the idea of doing this.
Yeah, one other note is like some of the tooling we use, these tools are not really made, like they're visible, public. You can find the repositories. Some of them might even be used like for testing plugins to the project. It might even give you an idea like how you might be able to integrate the similar tool to even test your own plugins if you wanted to. But we're always trying to improve these tools as well for ourselves, and hopefully I could get the tooling improved for like the community use with their own plugins and projects for testing purposes. So other topic points that I wanted to touch base on was basically about a blog post that Google announced sometime last year. Basically, they're going to be changing the release timing of how they do releases. Before, it used to be just one release a year, but now they're going to be breaking it down into 2 releases. In the second quarter, they're going to do a major release, and in the fourth quarter, they're going to do a minor release. So obviously, major releases, breaking changes potentially, upgrading tooling, and then the minor release, just fixes and optimization of that. So really, like, what does this kind of mean for Cordova? So again, like I've said earlier in the this meeting, is that we generally try to target only what Google Play Store's requirement. So even though they're speeding up the releases of these platforms, they as far as I'm aware, they have not made any announcements that they're changing the requirement of Google Play Store. So I don't really foresee that there's going to be any changes on the Cordova side. We'll continue working as we usually do. Obviously, you know, if you want to be able to contribute and try to speed up the development for newer versions, it's always welcome. But as of right now, we're just following the Play Store requirement. I don't know if anyone else has any take on that, but like, again, like everything is based off volunteer. So Yeah. All right. So I wanted to kind of touch base on community interest, and obviously I want to get your feedback. So this is going to be the section where y'all can ask any questions, or you can answer some of the questions that we have. But basically, we would like to know, like, what's your thoughts of the progress that Cordova's made in 2024? Like, how do you feel about Cordova overall? Like, is there specific parts that might need more investigation, things that you'd like to see? Any thoughts about like what was kind of listed in 2025? Again, obviously, like I said, we don't have like a clear set stone, like everything we're going to do. So things can change. So if you do feel like there's areas that need like attention, platforms, any specific platform, plugins, even down to the tooling, kind of like let us know. And if we need a bigger discussion on this, we can probably, again, like I said, we can submit a topic point in GitHub discussions, or even open up a mailing thread on the developers mailing list. And then obviously, lastly, does anyone have interest in contributing? And if you do, but you just don't know how to start, like what is preventing you? Like, obviously, I know like time. Everybody has a busy life, work, personal stuff. So I know that's that. But if there's something specific that we could address, like we don't know like how to use your tooling to develop, or what's the process of the submitting, or stuff like that. We might be able to try to document it, maybe simplify it, and help you. So yeah, I'll kind of open up the floor. I guess just raise your hand or something if you have a question. Yep. Actually, I see your hand up.
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Great. Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thanks to all the contributors. You've been doing a great job recently. I just want to say our point of view, we make Constructs, the browser-based game development tool, and we use Cordova for publishing to Android and iOS. We're a commercial company. I appreciate your view is that the best way to contribute is to get stuck in. It's difficult for us to make time to do that because we've got our own products as well. But we're happy to provide sponsorship or payment for work if it would help the Cordova contributors, be able to make the time to work on that. So if there's, I just want to put it out there that if there's any system, or if anyone wants to get in touch with me on an ad hoc basis or whatever, just want to put the offer out there.
All right, thank you. Did anyone else have a question or want to answer one of these questions? Yep.
Maybe I can jump in for the sponsorship question for a bit. So for us, it's really hard to accept money, especially for sponsorships and stuff, because we don't have any ways to distribute it on developers or such. So maybe if you want to spend money on developing Cordova and you cannot do it internally at your company or yourself, maybe finding some ways to do it through contractors might be a possible solution. So if you find contractors that you can pay for doing certain things in Cordova, this could help, but you cannot do it through Apache or so. So this is the hard part of it, unfortunately.
If you want to go down into the more details of it, if I remember correctly, like you can do a donation to our project through Apache, but the donation can't go towards development. If I remember correctly, it could go towards things like devices for testing. It could go for like documentation writing or something like this. It could be maybe even used for like testing services, I believe. I don't know. There's like a list, and obviously, if this is something you want to like go into, you probably have to reach out and ask Apache like how the donation is used. But as far as I remember, it couldn't go towards paying like an Apache person or whatever to develop or something like that. Yeah, it's Apache has their rules, and yeah.
So
it's
to be
a little
short,
challenging.
it's complicated, but maybe we can find maybe we can give you some advice if you want to reach out and discuss this personally. Yeah.
Okay, I saw someone raise their hand. Bennings, if I'm saying it right?
Benson, yeah.
Yeah, you can go. Yep,
Yes.
I hear you.
Okay, now I cannot hear you.
Wait, do you hear me right now? Can you hear me?
No. Okay. I got
Okay.
on there, but let me fix my microphone.
Okay.
We also have Michael. Maybe you can ask a question in the meantime.
Sure.
Yeah, if that's all right, we'll jump with Michael while you fix your microphone.
Hey, so as we start thinking about different ways of using Cordova, like what was referred to as the platform-centered approach, one thing that keeps coming to mind for me is the beautiful dependency management we enjoyed when we weren't using the platform-centered approach. So let's go over it real quick for everyone's benefit, right? So the original way a lot of us used Cordova was to say we're going to dynamically generate an Android and an iOS project, and that project is going to contain a website that has been Cordovaized, with some additional Cordova JS in it, and all of that is going to be glued together on the disk of the device and shipped with our app. This beautiful kind of versioned thing. As I start to have apps that use Cordova in the platform-centered approach, where I have a predominantly native, say, iOS app, and I include Cordova as a Swift package, and I hope to, thanks to the PR that was just released, or just linked, start to include plugins maybe in that same manner, it starts to make me think through, okay, I have, different pieces that of this puzzle that are now starting to get managed by different dependency managers. So to explain the full scenarios, in the way I'm starting to use Cordova, I'll have a native iOS project, pulling in Cordova as a Swift package, pulling in plugins, referring to a website not on disk, but live on a server. So now that website itself has to have the same, what I like to call the bridge code, in it that corresponds to the plugins that are on the disk of the device. And all of this is doable, but there's not kind of one nice single source that drives all of it anymore, like a nice package JSON and config XML in one place that, spits out what's needed for native and web. I'm kind of faking it at the moment, and I didn't know if anyone else was running into this bridge to cross.
Back in the day, when you downloaded all the platforms separately and the Cordova CLI barely existed, there was this idea of a plugman tool that would install plugins more directly into the different platform projects. I don't think most of us ever used it ourselves, so I don't think that it is still particularly well maintained or maintained at all. But taking that idea and making a more modern version of it might be something that could be explored.
Yeah.
I think it does become a little bit difficult when your platform project and your web project live in different places, and
definitely
trying to get code in multiple spots can be difficult.
Yeah, we ran it for a very long time, having the web project packaged, and went through many fancy hoops to make the networking on that work. If I think about a solution that will what I imagine a solution might look like, it would be, if I just define it with requirements, it would be a natural dependency manager on Android and iOS, meaning like, okay, you're using Swift packages to pull in both the Cordova platform and the plugins, but something maybe that informs that dependency management that is centralized. And I don't know what that is yet, but let's just pretend it's like there's still a file, sort of like our package JSON today, and that package JSON can, yes, create a website with the correct set and version of plugins, and can, yes, spit out something that informs my native dependency managers to pull in the corresponding correct versions of these things. Anyhow, thanks for all of the hard work you guys do. So.
Were you okay? How about Beniz? You said you were fixing your mic. Is your mic working now?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yep, I hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. For some reason, I was not able to hear you before. So thanks for the presentation and for the huge work that you put into the Cordova. It was really great to see the progress. But I would have a question. Are there any plans by the team to create a Cordova plugin which can interact with the calendar, especially Apple Calendar? Because there is a plugin in the market that I can see, this Cordova plugin calendar. And as I see, it was developed by some individual person. And unfortunately, it's quite outdated and not working with iOS 17.
So usually we aren't adding new plugins. It's not something we're like focused too much on. But one of the things I can suggest is to take a look to see if there's a fork of the plugin. A lot of times people do fork plugins, and it's not really easy to find. But if there's issues, like if you have like the actual like errors that are happening, maybe you can open up a discussion in the thread just to see if anyone else in the community is able to answer that specific issue. But yeah, as of right now, I don't think there's any plans on Apache Cordova side to create a new plugin specifically for the calendar. But
okay, thank you for the reply.
Do you have any other questions, or next person?
No, there can be a next person.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question?
Manuel has his hand up.
Yes. Right. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I didn't see. Yep, I hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I'm developing an app with Cordova for a few years now, since 7 years, and I'm using 3 core functionalities. I think they are core functionalities. This is notifications, calendar usage, and the third one is okay. I forgot it. It's okay. No. The thing is, for me, the functionality of notifications and the calendar functionality. For me, it's a core functionality, and I'm wondering if Cordova could not support this plugins, because I think it's really important for Cordova, I think, to use this.
One of the challenges with plugins is just the endless increase in maintenance scope. It's a small team of volunteer developers trying to keep the tooling and the platforms up to date. Is sometimes enough of a struggle to make time for that. And then there's already the existing Apache plugins, and some of those have not seen as much love and attention as they should have over the past few years. When possible, trying to have plugins maintained by the community helps ease that maintenance burden a little bit on our end.
So you mean the community is needed to support these plugins to keep them on? Or because the thing is, I think notifications for Cordova is really essential. I think because notifications is also in all web applications, for example, and I'm wondering why this is not so much supported in Cordova, because Cordova is very good, and I think the support for notifications is essential, I think.
Notifications probably didn't become a core plugin because there were existing community plugins that were already maintained at the time.
Okay.
I do agree that it does seem like pretty core functionality that most people would want. But when possible, we try to push people towards community maintained plugins.
Okay. So it's not possible that some Cordova team members could support some other plugins as well. Maybe, I don't know, if some people are willing to help on other plugins which are currently not in the core of Cordova.
So we do. So some of us do have plugins that we contribute into outside of Cordova as well. Like I do contribute. Actually, I own the repository for the have source push plugin. If you're talking about remote. If you're talking about remote.
Right.
So
you
I am.
developing it,
Yeah, I am developing it. I'm maintaining it, and obviously I got very busy with work outside, so I didn't have time to update. And plus, I was focused also on Cordova in my free time. But until fairly recent, you might have noticed that there was just tons and tons of releases coming out, like version 5, 1, 2, 3. So I was trying to focus and trying to bump everything up, get everything up and working. So it's active, and then I am willing to have other people help contribute. Same thing with Cordova. We're always looking for people to contribute to help manage. But when it comes to bringing in new plugins to Cordova, because we're such a small team as it is, and not everybody knows a particular feature to be able to contribute, it becomes even smaller to like an individual person. And then at the same time, it's we have to go through the whole voting release process. That's why we were mentioning about potentially having a live stream explaining how the release process goes. When we create a package that we want to release, we have to put it out for vote. We have to get 3 people to vote. Some people might not be willing to vote on something they have no idea about, how it works, how to test it, that type of stuff. So that's why it's a little sometimes it's a little hard to bring in new things to Apache Cordova, like new plugins, because we think people outside might be able to contribute a little bit faster, has a more actual focus on a specific thing that they want. But at least that's how I look at it.
The problem is that currently, for example, that I am the only person who currently supports the notification plugin. And if you are only one person who is supporting a plugin, I think this is a little bit too less support, because I think it's better to develop a plugin with 2 or 3 persons minimum. And I think I have to fear if there are not more people who will support it. I think this is a problem to use it in the future, because you want to be sure that it will still it will still be supported in 1 or 2 years also, and you will get fixed for platform changes in Android and iOS, because every year can be changes and can break working plugins. Yeah, but I understand we cannot do anything because we need people who are willing to contribute to these plugins. I understand. Yeah. Okay. But I was thinking about that the notifications plugin and the push notifications plugin could be worked together, maybe. That there is a basic functionality, and both plugins use this basic functionality to make notifications, so we could share the code and don't need to make it double. But
I know what you mean, like a local notification versus remote.
right.
Yeah, okay. I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Like I said, if you had like questions on plugins, usually we prefer, like, we hope that the community will help create such things and maintain. Obviously, there's a lot of plugins out there that are very active. So maybe bring up the question, like you said, you would like the two merge together. It might be possible. So
yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
All
right. Did you have another question? If not, I'll move to the next person, which... Okay. I think the next person is Michael.
Hey, yeah, it's me again. I have a thought about the last couple of queries. It made me think, if we jump up a higher level, there are two kinds of audiences for Cordova. One is a vast audience that's not native developers, right? That are highly reliant on plugins and others to develop these plugins. The other audience, I think, is shrinking, but I think we could address that audience with a little bit of a marketing spin. So the native developers that could use Cordova easily in their projects, a lot of times I see them just diving right down and handling the post messages manually from their web browser, executing a global JavaScript function, like losing the benefit of objects and queuing and all of this. And that sell is even hard, right? If I go and I say to a bunch of intelligent native developers, hey, like, I'm a native developer just like you, look at this thing that's out there that lets you do this thing better that you're doing. They hear the word Cordova and they go, Cordova, like, what is this? You know, like, this is something very, very old. So I've been having trouble, like, winning hearts and minds with that. But once you do, then people realize, like, oh yeah, duh, this is better than doing this manually. By addressing that audience, you'll get more people who know how to do the native part, who can actually contribute to plugins and would contribute to plugins. And one way to do that might be, you know, focusing on that platform-centered approach, whether it's in a blog post or something that says, like, hey, native developers, right? Do you have web content in your app? Probably, right? Most apps do. I mean, look at settings in your iOS app. That thing's a web page, right? Like, parts of it. So, you know, people are doing it, help them do it better and grow that side of the community to address the other side.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're probably gonna have to, like, get some sort of discussion going on, like, kind of like fleshing out these ideas, like how we can do this, because it's always like, not everybody is like let's say a marketing person. So, like, if you had like good ideas of like getting the native developers on board, that would be great. So I think we probably should have a discussion on this, if possible, in a thread or something. Hopefully. I think there's another person, Christopher.
Hi, Christopher. Yes, I've been using Cordova since before it was named Cordova. Probably your plugin as well. A lot of them. Well, it's just PhoneGap and whatever not. You know. It's a great thing, and I think that it's very sad to see good plugins that everybody uses, like Firebase X, for notifications and whatever not. But it's so it encompasses it takes too many plugins at the same time. Very often just one is needed. But to tie on that. No, don't care about that. Michael, you said something interesting about getting the native developers more interested. I agree. We could probably contribute quite a lot in terms of plugins and different work. But we hate Objective-C. I'm sorry to say, but it's just like, no.
Yeah, I have trouble hiring people who still understand Objective-C on projects. Yeah.
Well,
so actually, in fact, you can write in Swift, so you know, like we do.
Yeah, but there's very little documentation. So if you could put out some links or do some blog posts, just get where is the documentation. I could probably swing in quite a number of things because Java. I mean, basically I know 38 languages, so it's not a language problem. It's just that it's like doesn't go well with me. And one thing I do think, two plugins that I know you guys don't want to have more work to do, but there are two quite core central functions, and that is settings. To be able to open settings on, this is for the mobile platform. It doesn't apply for the web, of course. So open settings. That is a native plugin that stopped working because the URLs are gone and nobody is maintaining it. Basically, I haven't found anything that works at least under iOS. Android said works. And then there is about the network, knowing a little bit more information about the network, which is really very close to the device. And I mean, yeah, I'll shut up now. Time is running, and I'd like to hear something more of a spin-off, and I'd like to be a part of it also. Thank you.
Thank you. In regards to network, one thing I want to just mention is that there was a network plugin that we have that is supposed to be maintained, but I think we might not have 5G written on there yet that I remember. So it might be a little outdated, or we added it.
Wasn't only that. I mean, the reason for us, for example, having the network plugin was to get the BSSID of a Wi-Fi, which you didn't get with the other one. So we really didn't care if it wasn't 5G or not, but we didn't get the BSSID, so that was it. So I mean, it needs a little tweaking and keeping it up to date. It's basically
it might be possible that type of stuff could be added to the network.
Plugin, I mean,
maybe.
Sure, if I can be of help also, but I need to know how I get into this because the documentation has been so.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely.
And marketing could do better. Because sometimes when I'm talking out, so we're using based on Cordova, been out, we've had it since almost 2007. People look at us and say, "That's old." It's not old. It's really good tech. Okay.
All right. Thank you. We'll take a look in some of that stuff, and then I'll try and figure out how to improve the documentation. That is something that we are trying to work on more. I did redo a lot of our websites, like trying to get all the docs that were just kind of like hanging merged in and refactored. Obviously, we are lacking on how to write specific plugins. Obviously, we don't have anything about Kotlin or Swift, but it is usable. I've converted one of my plugins for Android to be all Kotlin. I've started using Swift for another plugin, but yeah, like this is like, I guess, all of my own personal knowledge that I've never actually like typed up, and it's something that I'll try and do to try and help out with the community to.
Yeah, I think you sit on a huge amount of knowledge, and that is really worth sharing. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Just some stats on that. I thought it would be like, I end up having to maintain about 100 plus internally developed Cordova plugins. And I will say of that set, annually driven by iOS and Android ecosystem updates, about half of them regularly need updates to comply with different policies or just keep working on newer operating systems. Well, everything's been written in Swift and Kotlin for about the maybe last 5+ years in all of those plugins. So we've had a pretty good experience with that. We have had to figure out a couple of things as we move to the platform-centered approach and try to break plugins separate from Cordova into packages and still make sure reflection works and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it's 2, but I want to try and get the last 2 people that raised their hand. So let's see. Patrick?
Yeah, hey, thanks. So I'll be quick then. My name's Patrick. I'm in the Seattle, Washington area, just a few miles from Microsoft, believe it or not.